Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool.
Hey guys, this is Chris. I'm gonna be showing you guys how to play chess. But before we actually go into the game, we have to discuss some things like, for example, how to properly set up the board and what each piece does and what they do. And apart from that, some chess terms that you need to know before you play the game. So let's start out with these little guys. These guys are called pawns. There are 8 of these guys, most of all the other pieces. Here's the white side too. There are 8 of them, and they go on the first row, like this and like that. These guys move one space at a time, but at the beginning of the game, like when they're still on the first row, you have the option to move them 2 squares instead of 1. You don't have to. I mean, you could still move them 1 space, but you have the option to do that. After you move 2 spaces, though, after that you can only move 1 space at a time. Now, the way that these guys attack other pieces is a little more different. With all the other pieces, you just attack them by how they move, but with these guys, you don't, like, for example, here's this guy. You can't just attack him like that. You have to attack him, like, for example, if this one's right here, this one's right here, your pawns can only attack other pieces if they're diagonal to each other, like here, or like here. And you can only attack them like that. Note that these guys can only move forward and not backwards. All the pieces can move backwards too, but the pawns can only move forward. Some might think at the beginning of the game that pawns aren't that useful, but around the end of the game, these guys become pretty useful. There's especially this one thing that they can do that can really change the game. So you just might want to keep these guys around. So our next guy is the rook. These are the castle looking guys. This one looks a little bit different because it's like a different version of chess that I've got. But yeah, in the regular game they usually look like castles. These guys go at the corners. Like here's 1 and here's 2. There's only 2 rooks. These guys can move vertically or horizontally. So for example, here's our rook. It can move this way, this way, this way, or this way. So yeah, basically vertically and horizontally. And you can move them however many squares you want. So for example, I can make it go here, or here, or here. Same thing over here. I can either make it go 1, 2, or 3, and with vertical side, etc. And yeah, they just catch other players just by doing that, unlike the pawns. They go here. Next up is these horse-looking guys. They're called knights. This one looks kind of creepy. Look at that eye. But these guys actually have a weird way of moving. They move 2 squares up or down, and 1 square left or right. It'll be easier to remember if you think of it as an L, because here, for example, here's the knight, and it goes, so yeah, it goes 2 up and then 1 like that. And it's the same concept, like for if it's going backwards, it goes like that and like that. And these guys can jump over other pieces, like for example, if here's all these guys, they can simply just jump over. And these guys, there's 2 of these guys, and they are right next to the rooks. And it's also the same thing for the white pieces, if you didn't know. Next up are the bishops. They're right next to the knights. Here's another one over here. And these guys move like almost the same as the rooks, except these guys, instead of going vertical and horizontal, they go diagonally, forward or backwards. So it's the same concept. You can make them go however many squares you want. So you could go like 1 or 2, or, well, this place is blocked, but if there's space, you can make it. If there's enough space, you can make them go all the way across the board. But yeah, that's how they work. And down to our queen, which is right next to the king. Our queen goes the queen can go any direction. Could be considered one of the most powerful cards in the game. I mean, not cards, pieces, because they can move in any direction, however many squares they want. So like, you can make it go vertically, horizontally, diagonally, however many squares you want. And yeah, they're pretty useful. And finally is our king, which is like probably the main piece in the game, because you have to protect the king. If not, well, you lose. These guys have the same concept as the queen. They can move any direction they want, but they can only move 1 square at a time, unlike the queen, who can move however many squares. But these guys can only move 1 square at a time. Okay, so now we've gone over what each piece does and where they go. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention the queen always has to go on her color. So, for example, this queen is black, so she has to go on the black square. This queen's white, so she goes on the white square. Okay, now that we've actually gone through what each piece does, now we can go to what the terms. So, first term would be a checkmate. So a checkmate basically means that you've officially trapped the king and that you've basically won the game. So, for example, my king is right here, and the white side goes to center and his troops in. So here's the rook, which is basically threatening me because he can go over here. So I'd have to move. But all of a sudden, he also has 2 pawns, so I can no longer move over there. So in that case, I'd have to move forward. But then again, he also has sent another rook. So now I can't, now I can't move over here. I can't move there or there, and I can't move over here. So now I'm officially trapped, which means the game is over and the white side has won, which means it's a checkmate. Now the next term is a check, which is kind of like the checkmate, but doesn't, like, the game isn't over just yet. So for example, my king's right here. There's no pawn here. And there's a rook right here. So I'm being threatened by the rook. So there's 3 ways to get out of a check. 1, you can simply just move out of the way. 2, you can take out the attacker, just like that. Or 3, you can simply just block their path, which will end the check. Note that when you're in a check, you can't move any pieces except the ones that are going to get you out of check, because it's just a rule. So our next chess term is a stalemate. Now, stalemates are well, they're not that rare, but they don't happen that often. A stalemate is like, for example, these two kings both got each other trapped, and well, none of them can win or get out because they're both trapped. So in that case, it would lead to a draw or a tie, and that would be a stalemate because none can win. Or if there's a scenario, for example, there's like all the pieces have been taken out except the two kings. This rarely happens, but it could still happen to you. But in that case, no one can really win because you can't really get one out. But yeah, that's a stalemate. Our second to last chess term is a castling. Now castling it's kind of complicated to do, but I've never done it personally myself, but it's a thing. So for example, if it's a castling move is like, for example, my king's right, like it's next to the rook. It's basically when your king moves 2 spaces to the right, or in this case 2 spaces to the left, and then your rook goes on the opposite side of your king. Now, like I said, I've never done this myself, so I don't know how it works at use. What I do know is you can only do this once in a game, and for example, like there's a specific rules you have to follow in order to do a castling move. Like, for example, here's the king, right? And over there's the rook. In order to make a castling move, there can't be any interfering pieces in their path, whether it's your piece or the other player's pieces. Another rule is both your king and rook weren't recently moved, which means you didn't move them that recent. And finally, in order to make a castling move, you have to make sure your king hasn't taken over hostile pieces square. Like, for example, here's a hostile piece, your opponent, and you take it out with your king. Well, you can't really. In that case, you can't do a castling move because, like I said, those are just rules. So our final term for chess is a promotion. Now, that's what I was mentioning before about the pawns, how they could be really useful. So, for example, while you and your opponent are going toe-to-toe, fighting each other, not physically, but in the game, your opponent doesn't notice that your pawn has somehow made it all the way to the end of the board. In that case, if your pawn makes it to the end of the board, you immediately get to choose to switch out your pawn for either a knight, a rook, or a bishop. Oh, wait, and a queen. So yeah, that's a really useful move if you got your queen taken out, because now if it's over there, you can switch it out and revive it. And like I said, not just for the queen, you can also switch it out for a knight, a rook, or a bishop. So now we've finally gone over all the terms for chess, and now we can actually start talking about how to actually play. So to start out, when the game first starts, the white side has to go first. So yeah, the white side moves. Oops. And then you start moving. Now you have to, as some may think, chess isn't all about just like taking out all the pieces. Like, that's not how you win. Like, yeah, it's helpful like towards winning, but that's not how you win. You have to like, I mean, yeah, it's helpful, but you have to like actually think before you do something. Cause like if you're up against a smart player, they'll probably use their little pawns as bait. Like for example, here's the opponent's pawn, and then your bishop's over here. Over here, and you're like, oh hey, a free pawn. So you take it out, but at the same time, you don't notice that the other player has the rook right in front of your bishop, and then he takes it out, and now he has your bishop because you weren't paying attention. So that's what I mean by you have to think about the game before you do stuff, because just because you see something that you could take out doesn't mean that you should take it, because as you see, smart people, sneaky people use bait and a lot of other strategies to hook you into their game. That's the thing. You don't want to be playing their game. You want them to be playing your game, because in that case, you're just getting played the whole time, and you're going to end up losing. So yeah, the game keeps on going and going until you finally reach the final stages of this, and you've reached to the verge of either you or them getting close to checkmate. And you have at that point you have to find a way to get them into checkmate based on what you know about how the pieces move. But yeah, you have to sometimes you can make them come to you or just push them somewhere. But yeah, this game can really make you think, use strategy. You definitely have to be patient for this game, because yeah, things can get pretty intense. But overall, that's really all there is to it, to learning chess. Like, you can easily learn chess as long as you know. That's the only complicated thing about this, because you have to show what every piece does. But once you know what everything can do and how they move, you can easily learn how to play chess, because all you have to do is be smart about where you're moving your pieces in order to succeed in getting your opponent in a checkmate. But I really do recommend you guys play this game, because as I said before, it involves a lot of concentration, a lot of thought. It can probably advance your brain to think better, and it could help you in the future. Because after all, this game actually is pretty educational. It could help your brain get more advanced. But yeah, that's practically it. So like I said, I really think you guys should play this game. You can play this game with anyone, your friends, your family, whoever. And that's about it. Have fun playing chess. Hope we get a good grade on this. And see you guys.